Well, now we diverge the discussion to artificial intelligence, something that we still haven't spoken about since morning, right? Now, 2023 is slated to be the year of artificial intelligence for India for two reasons. As one of the largest global South economies leading the AI race, India became the incoming chair for the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence. That's one reason. The second reason is India took the top position in AI skill penetration and diversity in Stanford's AI Index 2022. So how could we not talk about artificial intelligence? And we have the best of competitive advantages in the field. It was imperative that we speak about this. We'll now speak to someone who's at the helm of affairs when it comes to artificial intelligence. I take this opportune moment to invite Dr. Rohini Srivathsa, National Technology Officer, Microsoft, to take this forward. All yours, ma'am, all yours.
No worries. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here. I really have to say the previous panel was just so super energizing that I was almost feeling like, okay, I think we should just keep going with that panel. It was just so much energy. I just loved it. We all have been hearing about ChatGPT. It seems to have become a household name. Grandmoms are talking about ChatGPT now. What I'd like to do in the next 30 odd minutes is talk about the generative AI as an overall class. The three things I'd like you to take away from here is, first of all, what is it? A little bit of a demystifying. Second, what are the kind of things you can do with it? I'm sure many of you have tried to write poetry with it, but let's try to see what else it can do beyond writing poetry. And third, what is it that Microsoft is doing with it right now, which might give you some ideas in terms of what are the other possibilities. So those are the three things I'd like you to take away from the next 25, 30 minutes. So first, what is generative AI? Look, as I said, we've all been seeing ChatGPT. It's gotten a lot of headlines when it was released, and the kind of uptake it has had is faster than any app that has ever been put out there. So quite dramatic. But if we kind of look back at sort of the whole journey of artificial intelligence as a field, this is not a new topic. The fact that ChatGPT made it so prominent is that it's just a wonderfully easy user interface. We are all used to chat. We are all using WhatsApp and different kinds of chats. So it's a very easy user interface. But the field of artificial intelligence has been going on for quite a while. In fact, the term was coined way back in the 1950s. And if we go along, machine learning came along, which is a way of saying that can a machine learn to do things itself? So when you write a program, you are telling the machine what to do, but if you showed the machine how to do something and it learns by itself, that's machine learning, right? So you tell a machine, go here, go left, go right, that's programming, but you show it 20 pictures of a cat and then show it a new picture, say, is it a cat or not? You never told it how to do it. It learned by itself. That's machine learning, right? And then they came into a space called deep learning. I'm sure you've heard of this, but the big moment of deep learning was in 2012, actually, when suddenly it showed a massive capability boost or accuracy boost in ImageNet challenge, which is one of the global challenges, right? So we have reached this phase of generative AI. And the term by and large means that it is a capability to generate new content. And the content could be many different things. It could be text, it could be code, it could be music, pictures, movies, and I'm sure many of you in this audience have played with it. By the way, let me ask you, how many of you played with DALL-E, for example, or something equivalent? Okay, Mid-Journey, okay, so a few of you. I'm sure, how many of you have used ChatGPT? Okay, so that's good. How many have tried to use coding, either GitHub Copilot or any other form of coding? Okay, so a few people. Okay, good. So yeah, so what that means is that there is a lot of content that it can generate. Now, how is that different? A little bit of tech, but not that much. Typically, when I talked about machine learning, about models, deep learning models, it is specific to a task. So you are looking to create, for example, an AI model that can do machine translation, right? You are training it for that task using a lot of data. Suppose you are training something for being able to detect if people are wearing helmets. You are training it using that data and a lot of labeled images. That is typically the way in which machine learning has moved. Typically, model development has moved in terms of a very specific task, training data, annotated, typically supervised, and all of that. This whole space of generative AI, underneath that is something called foundation models. And while I will speak today about generative AI, and as I said, ChatGPT in terms of text is only one form of generative AI. Generative AI could be any other form, like I said, code and music, etc. But foundation models are what is underneath. And generative AI is only one of the things that foundation models can do. So one has to just realize that, because then one understands that this is really quite phenomenal, what we are looking at right now. It is quite a defining moment in AI. So what do foundation, and I won't spend too much time into it, but a few examples, right? So when we say about a few foundation models that I will talk about, is when you talk about GPT-3 as a model, and by now we've already got GPT-4, by the way. So if you ask a question, why is the sky blue, it's able to give you a very well-crafted sentence answer, right? Prompt design. Prompt design has come up because these models have been trained in a way that when you give it a certain text, it is creating the next phrase or the next output, right? So in this case, for example, if I tell the model that this is what I want you to do, which is the top line here, extract this mailing address from this email, that's the prompt. I said do this, and I gave it the context. It's able to come up with the answer saying that's the output, right? So prompt is becoming, in fact, there is a whole class of, I guess, job category people are coming up with called prompt engineering. I mean, I don't know how long that will stick, but anyway, it is something that one has to think about somewhat deeply and carefully if you want the model to do what you want it to do, right? The other kind of generative AI that I talked about is code. So, for example, GitHub has something called GitHub Copilot, which allows you to really have a pair programmer, and pretty well-known software programmers and experts in this space have talked about the level of 80+% kind of productivity gains that they are able to get by using, and I'll show you a couple of examples. So, for example, here, what you have done is it's a piece of code, and you are telling it what this code you want to do, right? You want it to say something, validate each address with an API, etc., etc. And what you will see is that from that, it's able to create the code. Okay, so this is changing hugely the way even software programmers think about their role and how they work with a computer. And the term I will come back to in some detail is the idea of a co-pilot, which is which is an agent, an intelligent agent that is your co-pilot in whatever work you're doing, okay? Another generative AI that one is seeing, which some of you said you've used it, is DALI, which is using diffusion techniques to create interesting images with using certain kind of techniques behind it. And you can say, you know, astronaut riding a horse, and it creates something interesting for you, right?
RTL, the largest
I'm not really sure the audio is on, but
yeah,
our customers are using many of these tools to create pictures and create even design. For example, Mattel is a toy manufacturer, and it is using
has been exploring using the service to spark creativity across the entire organization, from toy design to marketing.
Yeah. So what that was basically Satya talking about, it's a small clip, but it was basically, he was talking about the fact that Mattel is a toy company that is using generative AI to create new designs, try new things, and really in that augmented manner, right? So, so I guess the question is, what can you do with generative AI? So I'll give a few examples. I mean, I'm sure many of you, depending on your context, can think about areas that you could apply this to. But let me give you a few examples. So one, what are the models I've talked about are, at least the three models I spoke about are all OpenAI. OpenAI is a startup, it's a large startup. And Microsoft has a partnership with OpenAI, which means that there are areas where Microsoft is working with OpenAI in terms of the training of the models, the hardware, the compute intensity that's required, and also working with them in terms of getting some of that capability into Microsoft and to our customers, right? So that's the point. But what all can you do? There's a whole bunch of things, right? You can do, like I said, code generation. You can write essay outlines. You can summarize text. You can do language translation. Of course, you can write poems. you can do comments from code. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. And the interesting thing is you are doing this with a very few lines of input. And that's interesting because that's where the art becomes, which is I earlier referred to as prompt engineering or prompt design. That is becoming a specialized approach or a way to think about clearly that how do you work with this model, this intelligence, if you will, and get what you want, right? So the kind of, at least the four capabilities and use cases that we are seeing as an organization with our customers and partners, at least four categories are around content generation, around summarization, code generation, and semantic search. What does that mean? Give me a couple of examples, right? So one is, if you think of, for example, call center. If a call center has got a lot of analytics and a lot of data that has been captured, and I'll give you a little example there. Can you summarize it? Can you talk to it? Can you really make it usable, right? Similarly, if many of you are, obviously many of you here are startups, if you are creating your website, can you create something that is very personalized using generation, using content generation? Summarization is clearly another space where, again, if you look at call centers, but for example, anything, if you have financial reports or you have, tons of, documentation of any kind, summarization of it becomes very, very interesting. Similarly, code generation I already spoke about. I guess somebody has said the new programming language is English, because that's what's happening. People are now writing code by telling the computer what they want, and it's really quite remarkable what the model is able, the language is able to do. Semantic search is a huge area, and I feel very, very positive, very hopeful about what all it can do, because many a times we are looking at in so many professions, whether it is intellectual property that we were discussing, right, or you're looking at medical information, or think anything where you're looking at searching for something out of a very, very large corpus of information. How do you get that based on what you mean rather than keywords? So there's tons that one can do using semantic search. Many cases that you think about which are across these regions, I mentioned call center analytics, and there are tons of them. But I think a couple of important things that I'd like you to take out from here is, one, while I'm talking generative AI, it is important to remember that the generative AI, the technology is one of the tools in your toolbox. It's not like today you can just say, I can throw your entire problem statement to generative AI. You have to think about your entire problem statement. So what I'm showing here, obviously, it's not for everybody. It's just basically to say that if I have call center analytics, so what you have over here is just this is a open AI service, but you really have to be able to have your entire solution, take the call center agents, store it somewhere, convert the speech to text, then bring generative AI, and then you're going to have either insights or ability to talk to it. I'll give you a couple of examples for this, right? So for example, let us say there is a call center discussion that has happened between somebody who met with a car accident and has called the insurance company or somebody to talk about, what happened, and there is a lot of data. Now, typically, to be able to have reams and reams of such data, how will you figure out what was the reason, why was the call? So now you should see the real power here, right? So what is happening is, this is what you have here is, this is not working, okay. What you have on the top is just the text of what the discussion was. It's just text of the call center discussion, right? What was the Azure OpenAI instruction was to say, extract the following from the conversation. The main reason, sentiment of the customer, how did the agent handle the conversation, what was the final outcome, create a short summary. And this is the output of the model. This is what the model has been able to do from the conversation based on the question you asked. Okay? Let it sink in, because it's non-trivial. Now, let's say I say, I want to get from this phone conversation, which is in the middle here right now, I want to say, extract this information. For some reason, this is not working, but anyway. Pick up these things, call reason, cause of the incident, all of these things, pick up these things, make sure, so I'm giving this is the instruction I'm giving to the machine. Make sure fields 1 to 6 are answered very short. Example for location, just say location name, please answer in a JSON machine readable format. Format the output as a JSON object, pretty print, and ensure it's properly closed. You've given this data, and this is what the machine has come out with. Okay, it has looked at all that data and has given you JSON output. So it's pretty remarkable, and this is another one where the input is in German. It talks about write it in a letter format, be apologetic where possible, use this as time format, and this is the output. So it is pretty remarkable what this is able to do. But again, like I mentioned earlier, you have to remember that while it is remarkable what OpenAI can do, but at the end of the day, it's a tool in your toolkit. And so what I have on the page is thinking about the entire stack of how machine learning AI works. So in the Microsoft Azure world, you have people who have deep machine learning data science knowledge. They work in this space where they are doing machine learning at using data science techniques, as I mentioned. But then there are people who are developers, who are creating new applications. They use things like here to be able to just directly call these APIs to do language translation or object recognition, etc. What this means is that you don't have to be a data scientist machine learning person to be able to work at this layer. That's what I mean by it's getting democratized. It's getting ready for anybody to use. You don't have to be a data scientist, at least to work in some of these layers. And then many of these things are becoming scenario-based services. But main point to take away from here is that think of it as a tool in your toolkit, right? I keep going. I was discussing a little bit before with the gentleman about if there is OpenAI, so why should I think about OpenAI with Azure, Microsoft, etc. So there are some important reasons, because if you are an enterprise and you want to make sure that your data, your internal data, your intellectual property, your context, etc., is protected within your, as per your corporate norms and policies, then it makes a lot of difference when you say that I'm using OpenAI within my Azure subscription, because then my data doesn't leave my premises, my data is fine-tuned to my models, and you are looking at a world which has all the security and policy controls that enterprises need. So that's just a point to say why enterprises, when they are using OpenAI, they need to think a little bit broader than just the capability of the model per se. So now let me spend a little bit of time on, so what are we doing? So what I showed until now, especially what I showed on Azure OpenAI, was how it's available on the platform, Azure as a platform, to build applications by our customers and partners, right? That is the capability that we have brought to the cloud that startups, developers, customers, partners can leverage to build your own applications, your own solutions. But having said that, we as Microsoft also have a bunch of first-party products. And we are going big with this. We are going big with AI, right? Because what we are saying is this is going to change the way in which you work in fundamental ways. So we are bringing this notion of a co-pilot into everything you do. Everything that every task somebody does, and this is just the beginning, you will have an intelligent agent that is your co-pilot. So if you use Microsoft 365 as your productivity suite, you will start to see an intelligent co-pilot everywhere. And what does that mean? So I'll give you a couple of examples. What does it mean? So what is this doing? It's basically saying that you have your data, which is where the Microsoft graph comes in. Those of you who develop applications using Microsoft 365 data will understand what the graph does. Of course, all the applications, and then these large language models. So these are getting combined and are creating this co-pilot across all the applications. So we are going big with this. We are going really strong, making sure that the whole notion of work is going to change. I'll give you a couple of examples to get a sense. So assume that you have a co-pilot in PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm assuming how many of you use PowerPoint? Okay, so let's say you have a PowerPoint deck and you want to get started. Most of us have a beginner's block. What do I start? What do I do? How do I do? All right, so let's say you have a co-pilot in PowerPoint and you want an intelligent co-pilot to help you do something you want to get done. So just look at this video. So you're starting with an empty slide. It says, describe what you would like to create or type for suggestions. All right, this is the co-pilot that's helping you here. So you're telling it, I want a presentation built out of a file which somebody sent up as a proposal. This is what it created. It created this from the proposal. All right, now I said add a slide with some, remember to check for accuracy. Make the slide more visual and make sure that you create animation. So you are working with this agent. You are not doing the drudgery work of taking, okay, slide number 1, slide number 2, let me put, none of that. It's doing all this stuff for you. You are in the zone. That's what's happening. The people who are doing coding with this, they are saying they are in the zone. So when you're trying to solve a problem, right, you want to be able to focus on the problem. You don't want to keep distracting to say, let me go Stack Overflow and figure out this piece of code, let me write it, right? You want to stay in the flow. You want to solve the problem you wanted to solve. That's what this is doing, right? It is working with you at your pace. And I've become, of course, many of these things are going to come out, but this is going to change completely the way in which you think about work, right? Another example, just look at this. So Teams, if many of you use it, is a collaborative platform, does a lot of interesting things, but see how meetings, how collaboration and meetings will change. Just look at this. I'll explain to you what this is. So here's what has happened here is that there is a meeting, I'm not able to join this meeting. I said, can't join it, but please follow it. All right? The meeting happened. In the meeting, I was somewhere else. I came back. The co-pilot is telling me that there were certain things done in this meeting. Okay? There was some presentation shared, there was some, now I'm asking it. I'm asking it what other customers were discussed and what factors were considered in this meeting. It is going through the meeting's transcripts and all that happened, and it's telling you what happened in that meeting. You can ask it, was there any jokes cracked in the meeting? It will tell you whether some jokes were cracked in this meeting. Okay? You can tell you whether any action items, where was my name, was anything assigned to me. It will tell you if something was assigned to you. Okay? So it's completely, I'm going to go through the entire thing, but it's completely changes the way in which you think about work. Okay? If you've used the new Bing, so Bing is a search engine. What's happening in the new Bing? So by the way, I didn't spend too much time on the foundation models, and I'm telling you, it's a game changer. We are just talking about generative AI, but foundation models are a game changer. What's happening in Bing, it's a search engine, but what you are telling the model, I want to understand, I want some information, but I want it grounded in reality. I don't want something, you can't cook it up. Don't cook it up, right? But let me tell you, you have access to a search engine. So what Microsoft has done, it's taken Bing and it has created this orchestration between GPT, behind Bing Chat is GPT-4 by the way, between Bing Chat and, between GPT-4 and Bing, and what it gives you is a synthesized answer, not just a few links, synthesized answer of what you are looking for that are grounded in reality, that have indexes to where it found those answers from. Okay? So this is another way in which you are thinking about search being completely changed in a way that is intelligent. So I mean, you know, this is I mean, I'm just showing you a couple of examples, but you know, Satya has said this, that AI is now at a place where some very fundamental changes are happening, and work is going to get redefined as we know it, and we are just starting on this space. So I hope you were able to get a few ideas of, you know, what are we talking about here, like at least a little bit of a sense for what is generative AI, what kind of capabilities are there on the platform, cloud platform for you to build with, and what are we doing with this capability for the products that we build. So with that, I'll stop. I do have a couple of minutes if there are questions I can answer or... Sure. Hopefully this was interesting. Thank you.
Well, as time is pressing, we can have just one question from ma'am, so in case anybody wants to go ahead. Can we get the mic to sir, please, here, right in the front row?
We were just talking about this before your session about security.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to enterprise adoption, the security of the framework, whether it's using Microsoft Azure as the you know, on the API, or using any of the infrastructures that you mentioned about, does that go back to the API, go back to OpenAI, and is it secure for the enterprise to leverage? And then some more information around that would be very helpful for all of us to adapt to it and ultimately serve it to the enterprise.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I tried to go through it very, very quickly. I'm sorry about that, but you know, it was a bit quick. That's a whole reason. See, if let's say I'm a bank, let's say ICICI Bank, just as an example. I want to be able to service my customers based on my context, the way I call my plans, my products, my promotions, etc., right? How do I ensure that my customers are served using my data as ICICI Bank as customer, using my context, my language, etc. Now, the way this works is, if ICICI Bank, and just as a fictitious name, Bank X, let's say they're using Azure, what they are doing is they are using the OpenAI model, but they are fine-tuning it, or they are using called prompt engineering and training it, zero-shot training. There are multiple things, it's evolving by the way, on their data, and that stays in their subscription. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go to the model, the base model where it is getting trained. It doesn't go to anybody else. In fact, what you can do is you can put guardrails around what you want the end customer to see. So for example, let's say again, it's a customer service and the customer service should be able to ask about your schemes or your promotions, right? You can tell the model that if there's anything asked beyond this, say this is not within your scope. So there are those guardrails that are possible, which is why. Now you talk about security, obviously, right? The whole reason why, so data is one thing, but the whole reason why you would want to ensure that the whole zero trust model of role-based access control, the ability to have endpoint control, all of those things that one does in enterprise security are part of Azure, are part of the model. So that is why for enterprises, it becomes a very, very strong value proposition to use the capability, but on the cloud in a way that they are able to ensure that they are meeting all the policy requirements, and especially in regulated industries, etc., right? Pretty much anywhere. The last thing which I would just end with is to say that we didn't have a chance to talk about it, but there is a lot of media, there is a lot of very rightfully attention that's happening on are these models creating bias, are these models creating all kinds of issues, right? And there's a whole space of responsible AI that has been going on for quite some time. I've been working on it for many years. When you do this in the Azure world, you get the responsible AI tools and techniques and a lot of guidelines and capabilities to ensure that what you put out there is leveraging some of those principles. It's an ongoing journey. I will not say all the problems have been solved, but that is a very important reason why you should think about, to your question, about leveraging it within enterprise context. Yeah? All right. Good? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. I request you to stay back for a minute. And as much as I would have wished to have more questions from the audience, but the timer's right there and we don't have permission to from the timer. So many thanks to you, ma'am. And among the many things that I caught on, one was this, that as remarkable as it is, AI is just a tool in our toolkit, and perhaps it needs to be coupled with human qualities of discernment and intuition for us to make the best of it. I just added my 2 cents to that.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And may I again request Mr. Jitin Talwar, past President, TIE Chandigarh, to come up and felicitate Dr. Rohini Srivathsa, National Technology Officer, Microsoft.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rohini Srivathsa, National Technology Officer, Microsoft.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. I'm glad. Oh, she was okay. Fine.
Well, from this session on generative AI and technology, we are now about to